that high schoolers spend in America, India, and China. And I have just a few slides. A lot of people ask, why did I make this film? I've been an investor, entrepreneur, and operating executive for over 20 years, and I've been involved with businesses in Europe, obviously in the US, in Japan, Korea, and India and China. And what I noticed with, I do startups and seed stage investing. And what I noticed with a lot of my companies, and perhaps you all noticed as well, in the late 1990s, early 2000s, more and more of my companies were moving not just low-wage jobs over to India and China, but I was seeing more and more of the high-knowledge jobs being moved to India for software. And in my biotech companies, I was seeing more of the high-knowledge research work being moved to China. And so I'm also the father of 2 teenage girls, and I read The World is Flat. I'm sure you all have read that as well. And in 2005, I believed that there was a tectonic shift happening from west to east, and decided to go spend a month in India and travel all over the country and really try and get a sense of what was going on. And so in my visit to India, I had 100 software developers in Bangalore at the time, half men, half women, ages 25 to 35. And I hosted a party for them much like this and had a series of tables. And I would go from table to table and chat with them. And I expected them to be math and science geeks. And what I discovered was they were enormously well-rounded, educated in Western history, in Western literature, knew more about U.S. history than I did, knew more about geography, and I was really stunned at how well-rounded they were. And I asked them how they got that way, and they said, you know, we learned it in school. So I decided to swim upstream in the Indian education system. And so I spent time at IIT, IIM, and other colleges where my programs were graduating from. And then I went to their high schools, the middle schools, and their elementary schools. And there were 2 seminal moments that propelled me to make this film. The first moment was, I was in a first grade class in Bangalore, India, with 5- and 6-year-old Indian children. And I asked the teacher, can I ask these children one question? And the one question was, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I had my little digital camera, and I went from child to child, and it was engineer, scientist, cardiologist, fighter pilot, teacher, engineer. And I was absolutely stunned that 5- and 6-year-old kids in what I previously had thought was a third world country had set such extraordinarily high career ambitions. And so then I said, well, you know, I'd like to go meet some Indian girls in the same age as my daughters. And my daughters were in 9th grade and in middle school. And so I sat down with a group of Indian girls and I said, tell me about what you're studying. And what I learned was, already by freshman year, my daughter was 2 to 3 years, my daughter's a straight A student at a very expensive private school. She was already 2 to 3 years behind in math, physics, biology, chemistry, computer science, geography, and Western history, and English literature. And so I came back in a panic and completely changed how my daughters are educated. And we can talk about that in the Q&A period if people are interested. And then I started talking to my friends about this. And I said, you know, this is hard to believe, but Indian kids are way ahead of our kids academically. And I published a book about it, and but it was the sort of thing that until you see these kids and look them in the eye and hear how intensely focused they are on intellectual and academic achievement, you can't appreciate it. And so, you know, one way would be to take 300 million Americans over to India and show them, or make a film. And I ran the numbers. Well, actually, I had an Indian friend run the numbers. And it turns out it was cheaper to make the film. So what I believe and what I hope you will see tonight is that America is in serious trouble. And I do have to, this is this is not the most highly educated audience that I've spoken to. This is the smartest audience I've spoken to. But the most highly educated audience is the Harvard Graduate School of Education, where I have screened twice, once to the students and once to the faculty. And they have condemned my film, and they have issued a jihad on me personally. I have a bodyguard now. But, and they've also asked me to please issue these disclaimers before every screening. And the first one is, the film is not prescriptive. It is descriptive. The answers are not at the end. The answers will be in the 5th DVD of my series. Secondly, the film is my perception of education in India and China and the US. Others' perceptions can and may be different. No, I do not have a radical political agenda. I'm sorry. I'm not advocating the elimination of U.S. colleges of education, the abolishment of teachers' unions, or the dissolution of school boards, although I will support that. Yes, I know there are 2.6 billion people in these 3 countries, and no, the 6 selected were not meant to represent entire societies. That was a hard concept for the Harvard faculty of rep. I conceived of the film as a way to take interested Americans into the home, school, and schools of middle-class Indians, Chinese, and Americans. It turns out at Harvard they are not interested. The film reflects my own observations. It is not supported by peer-reviewed articles, or nor has it been funded by a foundation, and I have not done a longitudinal study. And while I have chosen to change how I educate my own daughters, I am in no way implying or endorsing that for anyone else. And finally, no, I do not think the U.S. should be more like China or India, except perhaps in individual humility and common courtesy. 2 things I did not experience at Harvard. So, since this is an educational film, I feel like I should share with you my academic credentials. I'm a graduate of the Harvard Graduate School class of '84, and as many, I think there are a lot of Harvard grads here who couldn't get into Stanford. And as you all know, they graduate 900 students every year, and I think it's only fair that you understand where I graduated.